Cladara wasn't the romantic Valentine's trip that Steve Evans was hoping for, as United scored 3 goals again for a second consecutive game and picked up our 9th win in 11 games. Winning on Saturday means I get to do my Valentine's poem attempt. Roses are red, Bristol threatened, Cambridge win and go up to second. Hello, and a very warm welcome to Under the Abbey Stand.
That's worse than the last one.
What, my last one or Julian's last one? This is the second review show I've done with you where I've started with a poem, Tom.
Oh yeah, it's quite literally poetic. I don't think there should be the word threatened in many Valentine's poems, I'll say.
Love hurts. I don't know.
Yeah, something.
Look, second is hard to rhyme with.
That is true.
Reckoned, beckoned, maybe I could do something else. I'll have a think about it.
Yeah. No, it's a valiant effort. Like I'm not sitting and making a poem, so I'm not gonna come for you. That's fine.
I actually wrote one for you, Tom.
Okay. Is that coconut tier stuff? Like, are we gonna need to pay? Is that
no.
Premium content? No.
You sit back down and you listen to this.
Oh wow, this is great.
Roses are red, champions are whole. A penalty in the 48th minute. Tom, did you see the goal?
Do I have to reply to you in rhyme as well?
If you can, that would be good. Do you want me to introduce Swindle so we could stall a little bit?
No, I'm not going to rhyme it. I'm not going to rhyme it. You can introduce Swindle in a moment. I will say that me and Julian were queuing for a stout in the NRE.
So you missed it without a doubt.
Yeah, I think I will say on this, obviously it's becoming quite a regular thing.
Nice that it goes both ways for a change.
Yeah.
It's a better feeling.
It was quite weird actually because normally I hear our fans more. Whereas we weren't really sure what had happened because it was quite quiet from where we are because obviously it's miles away from the away end. But we knew they'd score because the tannoy said they had, so that's how we knew. It
was a great penalty, really well struck.
Apparently so.
But that's the most I'm going to mention about praising the penalty taker. We will talk about the penalty itself in due course. I'm Jordan Worland. That's Tom Walker completing the panel. A man who dishes out more cards than Saturday's referee for Valentine's Day. It's Jack Swindlehurst.
Hello, mate. Lovely introduction once again. Brilliant to be back again after a lovely Valentine's Day victory for the U's.
No poem for you. I put all my energy into Tom Walker and he didn't appreciate it. And that's why he didn't get a Valentine's Day skepasti from me. But if you're interested by the world famous skepasti, head to number 1 Ferry Path and see our sponsors this year, the Old Spring. Swindle, 9 wins in 11 games. Are you getting bored of this winning yet?
It is disgustingly optimistic at the moment, isn't it? Harrogate aside, it is kind of uncharted territory for such a long time. We've been, enduring some quite turgid football over the past seasons and just kind of scraping survival. And it's been a very different style of Cambridge United, obviously in a higher league. Relegation was obviously very hard to take, but somewhat inevitable, I think. And then suddenly coming down to this league, a tough start. Harris was back, and he had that summer that people spoke about, and it was a tough start. And then suddenly really hit the ground running, and it's brilliant. It's nice that we've had, shown some resilience as well after a tough defeat to Harrogate and a poor performance. To come back and score 3 in the week and then 3 again on Saturday is wonderful. And it's nice to be optimistic about Cambridge United for a change, over the past few years. And it's all very good.
It's all that manifesting. Tomo, back-to-back wins, 6 goals for, just the 1 goal against. Feels like it suggests that Harrogate was a blip rather than a blimp. God, I've messed that right up, haven't I? Should we start again? It's all the poems.
Mate, I know what you're getting at. Don't worry. I got the gist of it. A bit of a blip. I think,
but nothing bigger than that. Not like a blimp, which is big.
That's massive. That's massive and full of gas. A bit like the Abbey on Saturday.
We beat the gas. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm just gonna be quiet.
Seamless, absolutely seamless. I think look, after Harrogate, sort of when me and Casper were sort of travelling back from the game and sort of afterwards, and obviously on the pod that we did after that match, we were pretty deflated, really, quite frustrated as well. I think about the result, but just a bit more like, is this really like what's going to happen? Like, are we really going to, it was quite a quick reaction. But I guess the way that we sort of framed it was, I think, more along the lines of like, or hopefully it came across as this, was more along the lines of it's a real test for us. Like it's a really big test. It's one that we've obviously not had for a little while. How do you respond to a defeat? And the one thing that we did say on that pod was typically we've responded pretty well. We obviously haven't lost back-to-back league games all season, which is, I think, quite impressive. We've obviously not lost that many, but when we have, we've obviously typically responded really well. But after such a long unbeaten run, and when that comes to an end, I guess, the last thing you want is anything resembling the wheels coming off. And we've been really good. We've just responded so well. I think it's the sign of a really good dressing room, to be honest. A really good squad of players and just really strong management from Harris as well, I think. So really impressed, to be honest.
It's that mentality that he talks about. That's what it is.
Bounce back ability, I think, is the word you're looking for. But yeah, I think because it's so easily could have gone another way. Like Crawley away on a Tuesday night, following up a bit of a disaster at Harrogate is one hell of a banana skin. You're playing a Bristol Rovers team who are all right. They're not ripping up, like they're not sending it alight, but they're better than they were previously. Obviously, that's not difficult because they were atrocious earlier in the season. But they're obviously a different proposition now. Steve Evans, etc., etc. We know all about him. And we've just kind of breezed through it, really. The first half at Crawley wasn't vintage, I don't think. But you get your noses in front. Second half, you blow them away. You really step up the level. And against Bristol Rovers, again, like there's a bit of a setback because we're obviously pulled back just before half time to 1-1. Probably against the run of play, I think. And again in the second half, like we just show our quality. I mean, we'll probably go on to comparisons a little bit later on between this team and other teams that we've had, who have gone on to get promoted. But I do think one of the really big signs of this team, and look, they've got all the intangible stuff, of course, they have, because you don't get to second in the league without having the stuff around work rate, desire, all that sort of stuff that we talked about time and time again with the lockdown team, the first season in League One, all that good stuff. But I think this team has a real abundance of quality and an ability that we've maybe not seen before, just to simply take games away from the opposition. Like we're going into most matches really with a starting 11, a bench, which is just significantly better than the team that we're playing. I mean, you look at the subs that we make on Saturday. We bring off the bench Corey Smith, who's played in the Championship fairly recently. Pelly Ruddock, who's played in the Premier League fairly recently. Lavery, who's played international football for Northern Ireland recently.
Raggett
as well, who's won League One recently again. And look, I'm kind of rambling on to a slightly different point, I guess. But I suppose if we want in a nutshell, like this is what good teams do. This is what teams that go on to get promoted do. They react well, and they make it very difficult for their opponents. That's exactly what we've done. And yeah, like I say, just impressed. I mean, it's a relentless division because you look at Tuesday night and you've got to go again, and you've got to do it all over again. And then you've got to go to Newport, and you look at the other results around us, and then you look at who the other teams around us have got to play and stuff. So it's obviously not there yet. Obviously, that's like obvious statement of the century, but I think it's like we I guess barring a clean sheet on Saturday, which is obviously a tall order. Like we're not asking us to go and win all our games 3-0. I appreciate that's kind of a slightly unrealistic expectation, but I think we've basically responded almost as well as you could possibly hope, and it sets us up really well. We'll call it a platform.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, up to second place, Swindle. It was a good Saturday. Obviously, Notts County Bromley played each other. That was a draw. Swindon lost, so dropped points. We creep up to second place. Are you at the point in the season yet where you're allowing yourself to follow and look at other results closely, or are you leaving it for a few games? Tom, I want your thoughts on that as well. Like, yeah, where are you sort of headwise at the moment? Are you trying to ignore that, or are you getting involved and getting carried away with it?
I mean, you can't not look at it. You look at the league table and it's right there in your face. But I think what we've done really well is actually focus on ourselves in this run, all the way through the run. I think we've looked at ourselves and taken it game by game and not really been too phased by what happens around us. And it's so tight up there, We're in that picture of automatic promotion, and also, we're pulling away from, we're 10 points clear of the first team out of the playoffs. So we're really kind of solidifying that. But what we need to do is carry on doing the same. I think Tom makes a really good point about it being a pretty much perfect reaction to a Harrogate loss and performance where, we've come back and 6 goals scored, 1 conceded, and just, playing really good football and patient football. Like Tom referenced, we've kind of managed both games quite well after, a frustrating start maybe at Crawley, and then, frustrating being pulled back against Bristol Rovers. We're just quite a sensible team. We're well managed and we're well drilled. And I think every team in that kind of top 7 or 8 is actually doing okay form wise. I think there's people who are dropping out of it and a couple of losses creeping in, but you look at Notts County, they're on brilliant form. Bromley are just kind of continuing doing what they're doing. The gap now is 4 points between us and Bromley, and I think it is important to kind of keep an eye on that. If we can, peg them back and look ahead to when we travel there and, be level or ahead of them, then that's huge. But I think it's kind of important just to take it game by game ourselves at the moment, and there'll be people who drop in and pull themselves in, and people who drop out. You look at Grimsby, who are currently 10th, 2 points off the playoffs, and they'll probably fancy themselves to pull themselves into it. So there's going to be a lot of moving about, and I think there will be points in this season still to come where we lose a game, and we may drop out of the automatics, and you suddenly you lose a couple, and you're looking over your shoulder to the people outside the playoffs. But I think Neil Harris has kind of got this mentality drilled into the team that it's let's care about ourselves, let's do the job ourselves and not leave it to anyone else. And I think that's a really kind of solid mentality. And he was rightfully critical after Harrogate, but then comes out and kind of praises the players' reaction where it's due. And I think that's a very healthy kind of mentality to have when you're in a promotion chase inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other big thing about Saturday was taking our opportunity, because we're going to have weekends like this one where teams in and around it are going to play each other. So someone is obviously not going to pick up those 3 points. So there's going to be those windows of opportunity to sort of creep further ahead. We've obviously got a ton of those games ourselves between now and the end of the season. Fortunately, a lot of them are at home. So yeah, that's another sort of plus about Saturday, not just what we did, but being able to capitalise on an opportunity that opened for us. Tom, someone on the message board called Martin, and I haven't fact checked this, but he wrote last night, we are 7 points better off than we were in 2021 after 31 games. And on that topic, we've had a really good question come in on X from an account called Chopper Harris. Has a great profile picture. Pretty sure it's not the Chopper Harris, but anyway, given that the top 6 is so tight and very intense at the moment, do you think there's much value in comparing ourselves to a previous team or a previous promotion team, given how strong the competition feels this year? Which I think is a really great question. And it's really interesting that we're talking about how strong the top 6 is, because I feel like beyond the top 6 to 8, obviously the league isn't as strong as it's perhaps been in other years. So it's a really fascinating picture where you have, like Swindle rightly points out, a lot of teams with really great form, really, really close on the old points count going into the run-in. So yeah, what's your take on that one, Tom?
I think, like, for us as Cambridge fans, I think it makes total sense, doesn't it? Because that's our knowledge of what good looks like. I think that's our knowledge of what a promotion team looks like, and I think it's maybe too simplistic to just look at the points total and go, "Oh, we're better than them, or better than they were at this point in the season. Therefore, we're a better side. Therefore, we'll go on and get promoted." I do think that's a little bit too simplistic to say. So maybe there's not like tons of value in that. But I think it's fine for us to look at. I think it's fine for us to look at and go, well, we seem to be all right. Like, we're doing okay. Like by that team standards. I think the important point to make is I do think the quality at the top end of the division this time around is higher. That is something that the points total does just evidence, really, more than anything. 'Cause it's not like it's not like it wasn't competitive last time that we got promoted. It's not like it, literally went to the last day, didn't it? So, it's not like it wasn't as close as it was then. But I do think the level's just a bit better. As you say, George, like there's maybe not quite divisions within a division, but I think there is a set of teams at the top end of League Two that are a lot better than the rest. There's a set of teams at the bottom end of League Two who are a lot worse than the rest, and then there's just a bit of a sort of dogfight in the middle of teams who are all a bit average, and they'll take points off each other sort of as the season goes on. And the result is that we're basically just beating everyone that's below us, other than Harrogate, obviously. But I think I think it's fine to focus on what other teams are doing a little bit. That's football, isn't it? Like you're constantly comparing yourself to what other teams are doing, I guess. But the simple facts are, if internally they're focusing on their own results and our results continue being as good as they are, it won't matter what other teams do. Like we will win the league if we carry on in the form that we're on, I think. I guess Bromley are maybe the elephant in the room there, but I just sort of feel like they might drop away, and that's not based on any data. It's not based on any anything. It's just a gut feel, and it's not educated at all. But yeah, I guess the reality is we'll only know in May if this team is a better team than the last promotion side, if they can match their achievement or better it, maybe. But yeah, I mean, like I think the measure of success really is that we look in a good spot compared to a very good side, and that's fine for us to say. And I think it's an interesting discussion. Like as Cambridge fans, I think it's fine to bring up. I think it's fine to make those comparisons. I mean, I did it myself a little bit earlier on in the pod. I think there's more quality in this team, just like across the board. I think that that promotion side for me was obviously a lot of it was typified by a lot of the intangibles, things around work rate, ethic, desire, like fight till the end, all that sort of stuff. It was obviously seasoned with a really high level of quality, and someone like Wes, and obviously Mullin had the season that he had, and arguably the goal scorer is something that we've lacked this season. But I think you look across the board, you've got a centre half like Job who will play at much higher levels than he is now. Someone like Watts, who is again probably just a bit too good for this division if he's playing on form. You've got Purrington, who's played in League One quite a lot recently. The centre mid bit speaks for itself. Ben Knight, again, self-explanatory. Kai again, like a player who we feel is just to a high level. So I'm not sure that we necessarily had that abundance of quality across the board before, but for sure, I think it looks good.
The number 14 shirt in each team is going to be
the famous number 14.
Is going to be an interesting discussion. Can't wait to have that one. Are you looking at other teams' results yet, Tom? That question I asked Swindle, or are you trying to ignore that, or are you getting properly involved?
I think a little bit. I mean, I think I'm making quite a conscious effort to try and enjoy what's happening in front of me at the moment, to be honest, because I think what the last 2 or 3 seasons have really made clear is that these good seasons, like these runs, like, they don't come around that often. Like you do have to really enjoy them when you're on them, and I don't really want to kind of pour cold water on that by looking, oh fucking hell, Bromley are winning again, that sort of thing. But also, like, it is just natural, isn't it? I think my answer to that question would be probably similar to after Oldham, really. There's only one team I'm really looking at, aside from ourselves, and that is Bromley. Because at the moment, I just think like that should be the aim. That should be the aim. Go and make it a really special season. But it's probably too early, I think, to really kind of take too much from what other teams are doing, because and look, there will be 3 or 4 other teams that say exactly the same thing I'm about to say now. But if we just carry on it in our own momentum and we just carry on the results that we're on, other results become basically meaningless, which is a great spot to be in. But that's how it is.
Following on from this topic, Swindle, we had a question on X from Steve. He asks, anything worse than the top 3? Does that make us monumental bottlers? What are you thinking there, given, how tight the division is and how, how difficult and challenging that points tally is at the moment?
No, I don't think it makes us monumental bottlers at all. We could have a really good run to the end of the season and miss out by a point. We're literally 1 point clear of Notts County on 4th, who are on absolutely brilliant form. There's Milton Keynes, MK below them. Another point who are also on fantastic form, better form than we are. So no, I don't think it would make us monumental bottlers at all. I think it's going to be really tight. I think we're going to need to be on it. I think Tom makes a great point before about, if we carry this form on, then we will definitely be in that picture. And I think it wouldn't be a surprise if we got automatically promoted. But we wouldn't make us monumental bottlers at all. It's a really tight league. We've just spoken previously on this podcast already that, that top 8-9 teams is a cut above the rest in the league, and that's the teams that are going to be in that question come the end of the season. Maybe throw that down to 10th with Grimsby, but there's nothing to do with monumental bottling at the moment. There's still 15 games left of the season, and a lot of games to be played, a lot of teams around us to be played, a lot of things can happen, and I think it's about having the faith in the players that they're going to deliver that, having the faith in Harris and his team to kind of get over the inevitable bumps in the road. There will be games that don't go to plan and games that don't go our way, and I think we must we've kind of got to make our peace of that a little bit. But if you look back over the last, as you said, 9 wins in 11, look back over the last 20 games as a whole, it's been so primarily positive. We pulled ourselves right into the promotion picture and into the automatic promotion picture. So carry on, keep that momentum going, manifest that positivity, bro. That's what we've got to do. And I think the sky's the limit, and I think United are kind of walking the walk after a lot of questions were asked in the first quarter of the season about whether coming straight down and whether we were going to kind of consolidate in League Two, or whether the intention was to try and push for promotion. And I think there's only one idea in Cambridge United's mind at the moment, and that is automatic promotion, and so it should be. But if they were to miss out by a point or two or whatever, well, one thing I would look at is taking 1 point from a possible 6 against Harrogate. But also, I think that doesn't make us monumental bottlers. It's a tough league, and it's going to be tough right down to the wire, I should think.
I have 3 things I want to pick up on from what Swindle just said.
Cool.
The first one is surely the first time on this pod that the words manifest and bro have ever been used in the same sentence. Very Stephen Bartlett stuff, that I think.
Yeah.
Right. The other one is like it
manifest brovers.
It has not escaped me. Like, it is quite funny, really. When you look at like our last promotion season, you almost talk about Harrogate more than any other game. And I think this season is going to be exactly the same, like based on the way it's gone. It's impossible to talk about our incredible, like, record-breaking run of form without mentioning Harrogate's name, which is incredible. The other thing I wanted to pick up on the Swindle said there, which actually was a point that I really wanted to make, was about just how we've come down. And we talked about reactions to a poor result in the last couple of games. And I think our reaction to being relegated, or I guess the reaction to the prospect of relegation last season, should we say, has just been really, really impressive as well. If you look at the week that's just gone, we've played teams that we were relegated with. Crawley, who finished above us, Bristol Rovers, who finished above us last season, obviously still relegated, but like categorically and sort of objectively, they were better sides than we were last season because they finished higher in the league than we did. And actually, at points, it was Crawley who had been touted as maybe the ones who might make a bit of an escape and might survive in League One. You look at the table now. Obviously, we've beaten both of them pretty comfortably. Bristol Rovers are 21st, Crawley are 22nd. We're obviously second in the league. And I think what we do on this pod a lot, and obviously rightly so, is we analyse each game that comes up in a lot of detail, and we talk about the management and the tactics and the team selection and individual performances and all that sort of stuff, which is absolutely right. And obviously we'll continue to do it. And obviously that's why hopefully people listen and sort of enjoy. But one thing that is quite hard to do sometimes, like during a season, is look at the bigger picture and look at the overall thing. And probably someone's name that we've not mentioned a lot really this season is Mark Bonner, and what a really good job he's done really in his role since coming in. Like, it's easy to forget that probably around this time last year, I think it was around this time last year when Harrison Bonner came back.
Yeah, February, wasn't it?
Obviously, what precedes that is, well, let's say 13 months ago. Let's take it back to like the start of January time. We look like we're pretty nailed on to go down. The football management of the club looks pretty horrendous, really, with a sporting director and someone like Ben Strang, who I think we all agreed time had sort of come for a change there, and obviously a manager who was totally hopelessly out of his depth in Gary Monk. And what's followed that is really good decision from Paul Barry and Mark Green and the ownership to make changes and make the right appointment in someone like Mark Bonner, or it seems to be. And there was a lot of chat about this football review, wasn't there, earlier on? And it seems like a lot of those changes have really paid dividends. And I know it's a point that's been made loads and loads of times, but like getting relegated from League One into League Two has been difficult for teams to absorb in years gone by. Like, you only need to look at the conference basically to tell you that, the teams that are in the conference, that is. So I think to take the team and the club and the situation that we were in sort of 12 months ago and to turn it into a team which has serious designs on winning the league this year is pretty impressive, really. And it's certainly something that's worth commenting on. Um, and I keep saying it, and I have to keep reminding myself, like, job's not done yet. Like we're getting carried away. Like we're allowed to get carried away. Like we should get carried away. That's why we support the club, I guess. And if you can't get carried away now, then when can you, and all that stuff. But um, I do think it's worth mentioning. I think this week is probably the starkest reason to do it. Is that we've played teams that we came down with, and it's very easy to look at them and go, that could have been us, because it really could have been, but it's not. So fair play.
Right on. We should probably talk about Saturday's performance. A rare victory against Bristol Rovers, a team that I feel like we play a lot. That was our fourth meeting of the season. Swindle, Bristol Rovers lined up with two up top. I want to get your thoughts on how well our centre backs and Watts in particular did dealing with quite a big and physical Bristol Rovers front line.
Yeah, this whole kind of defensive unit, not just the ones that start the games, but kind of everyone who plays, just seems to have really kind of found their feet in this league. And there's a lot of players thriving. Obviously, it's easy to say when a team is, on a run like we are and playing, good football and winning a lot of games. But yeah, I think just, cool heads on fairly young shoulders who've had a bit of a baptism of fire, certainly in their Cambridge United tenure. And I think, yeah, just absolutely whatever the kind of whatever's being thrown at them, that they seem more and more assured with each game. And just, it's testament to how good a contribution they're making that, Job and Watts both really heavily involved in our goals at the weekend as well. And we've seen, Job get on the score sheet. We've also seen Watts become really dangerous, up there, and he's in the right place at the right time. And I just think that's centre-back pairing that are playing with confidence and, are able to kind of, go into a game not trying to kind of just keep that clean sheet or, keep the walls from the door per se. They're kind of, they're thriving and they're going into games with a lot of confidence, and rightfully so. And I imagine there's, quite a few teams looking at this league and looking at, defenders who they'd like to snap up if United didn't go up, or even if they did. And I think, they're making themselves real kind of assets. And yeah, it's just when you come up against a team in a level like League Two where, they've got two fairly big players up top who want to kind of attack there and intimidate your defense. And for the most part, we managed that perfectly. I think it was, as you said, a blip, not a blimp, and a slight lack of concentration right at the end of that half. I'm sure we'll talk about it. I'm not actually convinced there's a penalty there. It was a bit of a strange one, but anyway, I think other than that, they managed the game really well, and we're starting to really kind of make that our thing. You look at how many goals we've conceded in the league this season, and it's absolutely brilliant. You look at other teams, Bromley are in first, they've conceded 33, Swindon have conceded 37. We're by far and away the best, defence in this league. And also Eastwood deserves a lot of credit for that. He's been brilliant, and I think he instills confidence in those defenders. I think, people often talk about defenders and how good they are and often don't think about the goalkeeper in that conversation. The goalkeeper obviously is a very big part of defence, and he's just, he plays with that confidence and instills that in them, I think.
He's not saved the last two penalties though, mate. So
yeah,
he's letting his standard slip there.
Yeah, didn't move on Saturday. I mean, it's a great penalty though.
It's a great penalty.
I don't think you can take much away from him. But yeah, I think he's been brilliant as well. He deserved a massive shout out.
I thought both the centre backs were brilliant on Saturday. I think Watts in particular was just really on it. And we've always sort of said about Joe playing higher, but Watts kind of put in a performance where you think, well, actually, you can definitely play higher. Obviously, League One, which is where we hope to be next year, but maybe push on a little bit more as well. An area of defence that we don't always talk about is the the fullbacks or the wing backs, and we've had a question come in on X, Tom, asking, was Parrington and Gibbo the best wing back pairing we've had all season? Follow-up question. There's a lot of talk on the message board around whether Gibbo should be tested for for drugs, for performance-enhancing drugs, given his recent performances over the last few weeks, because he feels like an absolutely different player. It's been terrific.
Yeah, interesting suggestion, I guess. I think, I guess taking him individually, I think it's probably one of Parrington's maybe his best performance for us. I think certainly from starting. I know he's come on and had actually pretty decent impact in a couple of games recently. But I think that's probably his best performance. Was much more like the player that we thought we'd signed. I think he's had a tricky season. I guess tricky just to get into the team, really, more than anything. Yeah, I think he's played well. Obviously, I'm not sure Gibbons started as a wing back in the game. I think he started in that sort of right centre back part with Brophy ahead of him. But I mean, yeah, I mean, we spoke a little bit, well, I actually didn't have the chance to speak about him after Tuesday, but like he has been so good. But like for quite a while now, actually, like remember, like pops up with the winner at Fleetwood. The cross on Tuesday night for McLaughlin's goal was phenomenal. Like he's hit it so hard and so accurately. Scored obviously just before Christmas as well, against Accrington. And I just think in terms of general play, I think Gibbons is one that we've maybe slept on a little bit, because like almost a sort of play that it's sometimes easy to take for granted a little bit, in that maybe struggled at times in League One really to cope, but having come down has really kind of stepped up a level. Like if that's what makes sense. So I guess he's literally gone down a level, but hopefully you know what I mean in terms of his performance has stepped up a level. And he's a real leader in that team as well. I know on times his captain does, but he's leading by example in terms of performance. Again, probably easy to take him for granted because the two centre backs he normally plays next to have been ridiculously good really this season and have really bright prospects as you've rightly said. But he's one that just keeps popping up with these performances. I know there's a Bristol Rovers fan who compared him to Cafu, which is nice. Good to see some recognition.
I forgot about that. I forgot that he's a former Bristol Rovers player.
Yeah,
just makes it even more enjoyable, the performance on Saturday.
The other thing as well, like to add into it, is I guess just to take it back to the manager really, because like we know from like speaking to him that his preference is not to play in this formation with this setup. So to get players like Gibbons, who's maybe struggled at times, particularly in League One, to be so effective in a system that he actually doesn't prefer, is really impressive management, I think. And obviously he's managed Parenton well as well, who's come through maybe a tricky start to his time at the club. And he basically, like, I don't want to oversimplify because I do think Harris is doing brilliant work, but he's basically just putting players in positions that brings the best out of them. And that's what we're starting to see. So, yeah, really good stuff from both of them.
Speaking of players that we're starting to see the best of, Swindle, he had an involvement in the first goal, I believe, but another good performance from McLaughlin, whichever you want to go with here. It was mentioned in the presser on Thursday that there was talk around minutes and fitness, so a little bit surprised that he started. I think he played most of the game, didn't he? I think he got into sort of late 70s, 80th minute before he was hooked. Put in a shout for man of the match. Talk me through your thoughts on McLaughlin.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see when, Harris is coming out in press conferences and kind of giving updates on players. And I think it's just on a very case-by-case basis and like that he's listening to the players. There's obviously conversations going on here and trusting the calls of like, if a player feels ready, then they're putting them in. And I think, like you say, usually we've heard on the side of caution, then also kind of berated, for having players come back too soon or going out injured or not being up to it. And I think we've actually done a lot better with that this season. And McLaughlin, whatever you want to call him, coming in, I think it's just been brilliant. And he's that kind of very kind of quietly effective player. And I think it's someone who's so kind of crucial to have in a run like this, because there's a lot of kind of plaudits going Kel Watts his way and Job and Ben Knight obviously hitting form now. And I think those players are kind of like notable because of contributions they make to the game. But I think McLaughlin's just really steady, really kind of savvy on the ball, doesn't overcomplicate it, joins it up quite nicely with the defence and the forwards, and just, puts an absolute shift in. I think the man's got an engine, and I think, like you say, 77 minutes he was hooked off and he put in an absolute shift. I think that's not someone who's, playing with a slight injury or ever so slightly cautiously. That's someone who's, leaving it all out on the field and someone that you need in a run like this. So, yeah, absolutely deserved the plaudits that he got on Saturday. Could be a really important player for us in this kind of run in, I think. We look at Corey Smith as well, somebody coming back, and we've already mentioned, you've got Pelly in there. And I think there's just a lot of players who've kind of really ups their performances. There was a lot of kind of criticism for Ben Knight, for Pelly, for different players at the start of the season, and we've seen these players come through. And there wasn't much criticism for McLaughlin, but he wasn't necessarily getting in, and there was, obviously there was an injury there, and he's just come in and really quietly kind of done his job really well, and continues to do so, and someone that's so important, I think, for United.
Yeah, what I noticed about his performance on Saturday was sort of his running forwards and his attacking play, which I haven't necessarily noticed as much, which I know sounds silly because he has, he scored on Tuesday night. He scored not that long ago away at Chesterfield, but it felt more of an attacking performance in terms of his running and his movement. Anyway, he was involved in the opening goal, and I thought it was a good opening 30 minutes, Tom. I thought we were on top. I think we had a couple of good openings where we've worked well out wide, and it's ended up with us cutting inside and getting a couple of opportunities. The one that springs to mind is Ben Knight had a really decent shot that was well saved. I think it came from I think there was a back heel involved. There was then a back heel involved in the goal itself. Yeah, it felt important to get that goal at that time, to sort of make the pressure and the effort and so on that we put in really stand out and get our noses in front before half time.
Yeah, 100%. I'd agree with all of that. Yeah, you're right. A lot of back heels starting to resemble 1970s Brazil. Really good stuff. I will start by saying that if you're a Bristol Rovers fan, you would probably be watching this one from like behind the sofa because they defended this goal horrendously, which I know Steve Evans wasn't happy about. But look, from our perspective, it's a really nice move. As you say, he starts with a really good back heel. Good work from Abbey. I know he's had a reasonable amount of criticism for probably goal involvements, I think, but clearly he's a really useful cog in a machine, and at some point you just have to accept that regardless of what you feel from like the eye test of whether does the ball stick, does the ball not stick, is he scoring loads of goals, like he's clearly a really useful part of this side, so credit to him for that. As you say, McLaughlin moves it along nicely. Kai's role on it is good, just sort of making life difficult for defenders in the box, which is what you want to see from Sully Kai. And then the thing that we're growing increasingly used to is seeing Ben Knight pop up with a goal at the end of it. Really, really good finish. Look, I think it's probably more difficult than it looks as well. So like it's quite tight in there. It doesn't feel like he's got like much room, much space to work. We managed to get a shot away. Obviously, nothing keeper can do about it. And yeah, really good for him.
And he gets it high without sort of lashing it over the bar, which obviously did a couple of times from distance up in North Yorkshire when we lost Harrogate.
Yeah, not easy. And the pleasing thing is that you hear about manager of the month curse and all that sort of stuff. Ben Knight obviously gets player of the month for January and caps it off for 2 goals and a new contract as well to boot. So yeah, brilliant. I will just quickly say, like, on Ben Knight, and we mentioned a bit like a little bit around Job as well, because of like the way that football's going. Like, it is very easy just to look at Ben Knight and Mamadou Job and see like 2 of those massive charity checks walking around the pitch. But I do think it's important also to enjoy having them while they're here, because clearly their futures and their careers belong at higher levels. But with someone like Ben Knight, when you have a player of that profile who's on the form that he's on, it is just a delight to see. And he's chipping in with a lot of goals as well, which maybe wasn't what I expected. Thought it might be more the creator, but he's getting on the end of stuff.
Yeah. When we have those new toilets in the NRE main stand section that they're talking about, you'll be able to thank Ben Knight and his big transfer to the Championship for paying for those.
The Ben Knight urinal.
Yeah. Let's stop that talk before anything inappropriate is said. I've got a few comments in mind, but there's a mad few moments to end the first half. We somehow ended the first half level, which I don't think was a fair reflection. Tom, we talk about the good finish from Ben Knight there. The Kai miss that sort of starts that whole chain of events. Bad miss, or just it was sort of a tougher opportunity than perhaps it looked in real time. What's your take on that one?
I'm gonna say harder than it looked. I'm gonna go with that.
Was it that miss that inspired you to leave and go for the pint? It's like, nah, we're done here.
What the Kai one?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it genuinely was. It genuinely was. I'm not joking either. Julian can vouch for that. He came with me as well, by the way.
He's
So it
bad
wasn't just me.
influence.
Yeah, I think at the time I was like, got to score there, got to score. But I don't know, the angle's not ideal, I suppose. I'm basically quite willing to be quite
In a
lenient
good
at the
mood.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt for it. One thing I would say on Kai as well, this actually isn't related to this moment. I think it was actually in the second half. Just another touch, like the quality of player that he is. There was like a cross-field ball. I think ended with I can't remember if it ended with a shot or a cross, but he basically hooked like a 40, 50-yard pass out the sky and brought it down absolutely beautifully. It's on the extended highlights. So if you see them, then it's worth checking out. But yeah, probably at the time I was like, that should be a goal. It should be 2-0. Should be sailing into half time. But that's not what happened. Was it, Jordan?
It was not. And Swindle, did you leave with Tom and Julian, or did you stay? Because I need to know if you saw the incorrect throw-in decision that was given.
I'm going to square with you, mate. I saw Tom and Julian coming down the stairs at the NRE bar.
Oh, terrific! Right, well,
I
I
think
don't.
we've got to like stem this chat because it is going to start coming off like we just don't watch any of the games that we're talking about.
No
We
one's going to
do.
sign up for the coconut tier if they realise that you
Oh, they
lot aren't
will.
watching the game.
Oh, they will, mate. Because there's a lot of
£5 a
poetry
month,
to be
great
had.
content. Go to undertheabbeystand.com for more information. Okay, well, there was a bad refereeing decision, possibly the worst of the half in terms of the throw in, unless, of course, it was the lino that gave it. But yeah, a not inspiring first half from the referee. Quite a lot of soft decisions and fouls were given. Anyway, throw in shouldn't have been one. Poor clearance, I believe, from McLaughlin ended up with a penalty being conceded. Now, Swindle, you said you didn't think it was a penalty. Tell me why you didn't think it was a penalty.
Well, I couldn't.
Unless you were talking about R1.
Yeah. No. Their one. I couldn't see it. That's why I didn't think it was one. No, I've looked at it again on the replay. It just looks very soft. Obviously, had we been in the NRE, it's a very, very poor view to see what's happening up there. You know, certainly as far as kind of penalty decisions go. And I just, yeah, it looked a little bit soft, kind of coming together more than anything. You know, the ball's there on the floor to be won in the first instance, and then the player goes down. I think there may have been a light touch, but anyway, it was given, and as we've said earlier, very, very well dispatched penalty. Eastwood, had he moved, I don't think would have got there. And as you say, it was quite deflating. You know, hearing that low roar of Bristol Rovers fans. You know, when the penalty was won and then the penalty going in. And yeah, Cambridge United of old would have probably struggled in that second half and may have gone on to lose that game, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, just a kind of warning sign. And you know, we've defended so well. It's a shame to be kind of losing, you know, conceding goals like that. And it's, you know, maybe a lack of concentration more than anything else. So it is just about getting through to the, you know, the halftime whistle.
Well, another penalty conceded. I think we had this chat after Fleetwood. It seems like we are quite generous in giving them away, even though Eastwood does a pretty good job at keeping them out. Tom's penalty for you. Whilst I think it was soft, I do think it was the correct decision personally.
It's a bit of a weird one. Like it's a real like tangle, isn't it? And I wouldn't argue with anyone who says that it was soft and not a penalty, but I also can see why it's given, if that makes sense. I think in like a VAR world, it's one where if it's given, it's not overturned, but if it's not given, it's not given. Hopefully that's what makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I would make a point of is there's not loads of appeals from our players. There's not loads of complaints about it being given, which I think is always a bit of a telltale sign. Obviously, not the be all and end all. I think they're complaining more about is it a corner that's given or something like like Watts is talking more about something like another moment rather than the actual incident.
I think it was the throw in, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That
sorry,
led to the whole bit.
But basically, what I'm saying is like there's not really many complaints about the penalty being given. It's more just maybe like the situation that actually led to it. But yeah, it's one of those where if the guy that's fouled, in inverted commas, is wearing an amber and black shirt, you're probably thinking that's a penalty. And if he's wearing blue and white quarters, then you're like, probably not.
Well, I feel like the penalty that we got is similar sort of bracket. It was
I don't know,
it
man.
was no, it was a foul and it should have been a penalty, but I don't know. Maybe it's because of
I
Joe go
think
down as much as he did. Again, it looks softer on the scale of pens given?
No, I think this will come off as just sounding so ridiculously biased, but I do think theirs was a lot softer. um, I think like theirs, and it's worth making the point as well. Like the ref had a very interesting afternoon, including an incredible amount of stoppage time added at the end of the game. Second time in a well, not second time in a row, but second time recently where like you've been absolutely flabbergasted by the number that comes up on the board. I was expecting like 3 and see 10. I was like 10, 10, incredible. But yeah, I think it's worth noting as well that like Bristol Rovers were holding a lot from corners. I think it was just before the penalty was given. Actually, there's the I think it's the chance that ends with it being cleared off the line. Even in that, like they're all over our players, like in the box, like they're holding so much. Like Kilgore was bad for it all afternoon. And I think ours was just as stonewall as they come, really. Like he's just dragged the centre half down in the box. It's a penalty. It's clear.
Good stuff. Should we talk about the penalty itself? Because how many's Ben Knight had now? Is that four? Is that the
Four.
fourth one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
fourth one recently, but they've all been different in terms of how he's approached it, where he's gone. I feel like this is the best one yet. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Swindle, the build up, it wasn't ideal for a penalty taker. There was a lot of delay tactics. I think Paul Rayner got booked for protesting. The goalkeeper tried to slow things down. Were you worried that they might get into Ben Knight's mind there?
Well, no, he had another one, the one at the NRE right at the end of the game, and he just seems to be a very cool customer. I think he almost thrives on it. Like I think this is a player that we're seeing now, kind of playing at the level that he believes he should be playing at, and really enjoying playing football. And I don't think that phases him, to be honest. I mean, you've seen him step up and absolutely whack it into the top corner. I mean, it's an absolutely brilliant penalty.
It's in the roof. It's
Yeah, you don't get a better penalty, and I think that's just a player who's in confidence, who's backing their own ability, who's really done well to ride a little bit of a wave at the start of the season. You know, there was criticism going his way, there was criticism coming our way for criticising him, and I think like fair play to Ben Knight. He's come out of that, and the new deal announcement is brilliant, and just to kind of see how passionate he is for playing for the club and playing for the badge, and coming out and doing another performance where he deserved a hat trick. By the way, in this game, I think he played really well, and he definitely could have come away with one. And I think he's just loving playing football, and to be that kind of, you know not quite talismanic yet, but getting to that point, midfielder that can come up with goals and just being that kind of life force for Cambridge United is a really, really great thing to see. And to step up and dispatch that penalty like he did under a lot of pressure, those away fans in his ear on that right hand side, and just not phased at all. Brilliant penalty, and such an important player for us if we're going to look towards that automatic promotion.
He's becoming very fitting of the number 14 shirt, isn't he, Tomo? How does that penalty rate out of the four for you? Your favourite, or the crew 98th minute has obviously
Yeah.
got for
Yeah,
the
that's the
time
one.
and the connotations, but
That's the one where I have to say I've never been so certain of a player missing a penalty in my life. Actually, probably maybe second to seeing Bukayo Saka rock up in the halfway line against Italy. Nice to bring that one out. Yeah, nice to remind yourself that football's not always good. Yeah, just a really good penalty. I think the point that's been made there about them being different is a really good one. Very much taken after another England penalty taker, Harry Kane, who is really just like it must be so unpredictable. Like keepers just don't know where he's going to go. The other thing is he has held his nerve pretty well, because there was also some Evans/Rayner shenanigans going on in the meantime, wasn't there?
yeah.
So he had a long time to wait and a long time to think about it. And I imagine he spent the entirety of that time thinking, I'm going to plant this in the top right corner. Easy. Cheers. See you later.
We have a third goal to talk about as well, Tom. A debut for Raggett. Not a huge amount of minutes on the pitch, but a pretty good cameo. Won a lot in the air, both defensively and going forward, which obviously set up Watts with the third goal. Any thoughts on how he looked on the limited minutes that we saw?
Yeah, looked I think how we sort of expected, really. Just a real battler, a real wall at the back, I think. Again, like I think him and the other centre halves that played, or people who played in central defensive positions, had a well, certainly while Caven was on the pitch, quite a tricky afternoon, really. Like I think for all of Bristol Rovers' faults, I do think they've got some decent attacking options, some quite problematic. Like someone like Quigley's always going to be a difficult customer. Then obviously Omachere comes on and poses more problems. I thought Raggett looked pretty good. I will say he's probably not been brought in for goal involvements, but great that he's getting an assist on during that cameo as well. I will say though, just to add to that, I can definitely see last couple of games of the season. Let's say Barrow at home, right? We're chasing a goal. We need a winner to get promoted. I can definitely see Sean Raggett coming on up top at some point. Definitely see that big auxiliary centre forward. Can see that coming. I like. So there's one thing I like about Kel Watt's goal. There's one thing I'm not a big fan of. The thing I like about it is that he scored, which is great. And it's good for him to get in amongst the goals again, which he's making a bit of a habit of, which is good because we need goals from across the team if we're not going to have that Mullin-esque centre forward who's plundering goals for fun. The thing I'm slightly frustrated about is, well, two things I'm slightly frustrated about. No knee pass, no thigh pass on Saturday.
Lot of headers back to goalkeeper on Saturday, wasn't there?
Yeah, don't want to see it. Don't want to see it. Not interested. Not interested at all. The other thing is slightly bored of him scoring with his head as well. There's got to be a thigh pass goal in there at some point. That's basically it. It's basically just two thigh pass related digs. So we've got McLaughlin on back heels and we've got Kel Watts on thigh passes. I mean, and Ben Knight on penalties. So I'm interested to see what happens next.
And Ben Knight on overheads as well. Because I'm still convinced that went in. It's still goal of the season for me.
Yeah. I can't wait for our end of season review, because everyone's going to go for that.
Right. Enough about Bristol Rovers. Let's move forward to the next team that wears blue and white coming to the Cladara, which is Colchester on Tuesday night. Let's hand over to the fan interview. Right then, news fans, it's time to find out a little bit more about Tuesday's visitors to the Cladara. Joining us from Beyond The Barside, we have Aaron. Aaron, thanks for finding the time to speak to us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
You've just finished recording your podcast for this week. How was that recording off the back of a defeat on Saturday?
Yeah, not the most positive record, not the most positive result, to be honest. Barrow lost 6 on the bounce, beat us 1-0. New manager bounce, as you said before we started recording, they've just had Dino Mamria take over after taking over from Paul Gallagher, but it was a really flat, substandard performance, and I think a lot of Colchester fans were really disappointed by it.
Yeah, what's the mood like in general? Because I swear the last time I looked, Colchester were on a great run of form, but then I looked earlier when we did our podcast, and actually the defeat on Saturday, was that 3 defeats in the last 5? Is it sort of been a little bit tricky these last couple of weeks?
It has. I mean, we're not a squad that's been blessed with much depth, and the signings we made in the summer, albeit really exciting, we brought in Ben Ferry, who we thought was going to be sort of bossing the midfield and taking over from Jamie McDonnell, who we had on loan last season. He got an ACL injury pretty much straight off the bat within the first few games, which has ruled him out for the season. And that sort of set a precedent for the rest of the season. We've had an incredible amount of knee injuries over the season. Ellis Dolo picked up an MCL injury. He's out at the moment. He's been quite a key figure in our side. Harry Anderson's out with a knee injury. He was a key figure in our side as well. So Tom Flanagan, the captain, also out of a knee injury. He's sort of just about making his way back in. Jack Baldwin picked up a knee injury as well. So the fact that there's 5 first-team players that have all picked up a ligament injury in the knee just seems ridiculous. And we've had the playing budget slashed. We don't have strength in depth. So when those key players are injured or not available, it's been a case of sort of fitting square pegs in round holes. And at some point when you're doing that, the wheels come off and the side becomes unstuck. And I think the last sort of month or so that's been the case with Colchester.
Yeah. With the whole reduced budget this season, you're currently sat 12, so like bang in the middle there. Is that something that
the Colchester fans are happy about, given the reduced budget, or was the expectation still
I,
something higher and more positive than that, do you think, at the start of the year?
I think the expectation amongst quite a few youth fans were playoffs, and that's not an impossibility even now. We're 5 points off. As we know in League Two, anyone can beat anyone, and any side can sort of put a run of form together, particularly towards the back end of the season. So, that's something that isn't impossible. In terms of the mood amongst Colchester fans, there's sort of two camps really. One camp has a lot of discontent towards the owner, Robbie Cowling, who has openly said this season that he wants to sell the club. That's the reason that the playing budget has been reduced, that he can't financially back the club to the extent that it needs to be financially backed for it to progress and move forward. He can back it enough that we don't end up struggling or end up being a club that falls out of the league or even falls out of existence. He'll back us as much as we need to be. But beyond that, he's been quite open and transparent in saying he won't be putting as much money into the club as he has been. And we lost a lot of key players towards the back end of last season due to offering reduced terms and not the money that potentially they would have been on earlier. Manny Egbo is out of contract. He's a free agent. He hasn't found a club since, but he was a key player last season. We let him go. Lyle Taylor was our top goal scorer. Obviously, a lot of youth fans remember Lyle Taylor, not necessarily in a positive light, but Colchester fans really got on with Lyle Taylor. We offered him, I think it was 60% less than what he was on due to his sort of age, and he had a significant injury at that time. He decided to move on. He now plays for Chelmsford in the National League South. So we started sort of knowing that was the boat we were going to be in, and we were hoping that the Lightwell Group, who were this American consortium, were going to take the club over and hopefully increase the budget come January. That didn't happen. That bid was rejected. We then had another opportunity to be taken over by the SAC Group, who were fronted by someone called João Xavier, but one of the people that were a part of that was Alexandra Pato. That's since been rejected as well. So we've had elements of hope where we could have potentially been taken over and that budget all of a sudden gets increased. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened.
Oh, it's interesting you said that last one there was rejected. I thought I'd read that it had just fallen through or not happened. Was there any information released to fans as to why it was rejected, or is it all, are you all in the dark a bit?
I think, we're in the dark a bit. There's obviously different bits come out on social media that some bits are true, some bits aren't. Various rumours flying about. One is that there's potentially another consortium that have outbid that particular group, and Robbie's looking to go with them. Another one is that their valuation and our valuation of the club simply were too far apart, and either we or they decided not to continue. The good thing about it is that João Xavier has quite an affinity for Colchester and the supporters, and has sort of been very kind and glowing in his assessment of the club, and potentially having someone like Alexandra Pato as part of your consortium maybe puts the fact that we're for sale in the national spotlight and, attracts prospective bidders.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Tuesday night then. It's been a little while since we came to Colchester earlier in the season. For those that may have not been keeping tracks on Colchester, what's the expected lineup in terms of formation that you're thinking for Tuesday night?
Traditionally, we're a 4-2-3-1. We deviated from it slightly against Barrow, and we sort of had a 4-1-4-1 type formation. I don't think we'll be going back to that. I think it will be a 4-2-3-1 with Jack Payne in that number 10 role. Back four, pretty consistent in terms of Jack Tucker and Harvey Araujo in the centre half roles. Fullback roles, I'm not sure. We've varied it slightly. Kane Vincent-Young seems to be the mainstay at right back. Finley back, we've just brought in on loan from Wickham, has played at left back as well. We've got Rob Hunt that can play there too. The midfield is where we've sort of really struggled with injuries. Arthur Reed has been consistently playing throughout the season. We have brought in Finley Barbrook on loan from Ipswich, who potentially could fill that role. On Saturday, Jack Payne played there. I didn't really work with him in the 8. I think he'll go back to the 10. But then we also have Teddy Bishop, who has been struggling with fitness a little bit. He missed out on Barrow due to his back seizing up on the coach, I believe, on the way there. So
It's a long trip.
It is a very long trip. And I can sort of see Bishop playing, given the fact he's from Whittlesford. Is it Whittlesford, one of the two?
He is local, yeah, and it's a name that's sort of been murmured a few times as maybe might be happening for us as a signing. Obviously, never has happened.
I can sort of see him coming into the side, particularly if he is fit and available. We've got Kyrese Lisby out on one side. We've been playing Samson Tavide on the other side as well, and we're trying to hit teams with pace and power, and we've had a combination of either Will Goodwin or Micah Mbick up front. I'd imagine it will be Will Goodwin, as Micah Mbick is currently out injured. But yeah, there are question marks over certain players, Will Goodwin being one of them. He hasn't quite hit the form that we were expecting him to. So potentially that could lead to someone like Jaden Williams playing up front, or even Samson Tavide moving a little bit more central.
Of all the names you've mentioned or maybe haven't mentioned, who would you flag to Cambridge fans as potential match winners for Colchester on Tuesday? Who's got that spark that might swing it your way?
I think Kyrese Lisby's pace is threatening to anyone. He is so fast. He's ridiculously quick. And that counts for a lot, particularly when you try and hit teams on the break. We're really effective at that. And I think if he can pinpoint a fullback and try and get them for pace on the break, I think we'll be really threatening. I don't think you can sleep on Jack Payne. He's obviously got that experience within League Two to create and threaten. So I think they're the two. I would have said Micah Mbick on loan from Charlton, but he's not available. So I'll go with Kyrese and Jack Payne.
And if you were doing a scouting report for Neil Harris, where do you reckon the game could be won for Cambridge? Where do you reckon there's a weakness in this Colchester situation at the moment? Probably sounds like midfield with your sort of injury crisis there.
I think, yeah, a little bit. I think Arthur Reed is exceptional in the middle of the park. It's just a case of, at what point does he break down as a result of playing so much football? I think how teams beat us is they sort of suffocate us a little bit. You don't give us any space. You make yourself really resolute and difficult to break down, like Cambridge were when you came to Colchester at the beginning of the season. We find it really difficult. We find teams really difficult to beat when they're on us, and the games where we have been successful, I'm thinking of Walsall away and Notts County away, they tried to play football and tried to play nice, pretty, and we were able to exploit that. Whereas sides like Bromley and Tranmere towards the start of the season, they didn't, and we found that really difficult.
Excellent. Right then, Aaron, how do you see Tuesday night panning out? What kind of game are you expecting? And then what kind of result are you expecting?
I'd like to see us come out of the traps early, and I think we will. I think we're going to want to see a response from Saturday. So I think we'll try and take the game to Cambridge as much as you'll allow us to. I'm hoping we get an early goal. We've got a sold out away end, and that will really sort of galvanise both the fans and the players. Although I don't see us winning the game. I see it being 1-1.
Good stuff. Thank you, Aaron.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Good stuff. And thank you very much for that fan interview. We are recording this obviously on the Sunday. We've not had the benefit of a Neil Harris presser. Obviously he spoke about the game on Saturday afterwards, but we don't know where the team is, injuries and so forth. But with that in mind, Tom, how would you approach Tuesday night? Because he has a habit of not switching it up when we have those quick turnarounds between Saturday and Tuesday. But Saturday just showed the depth that we've got. I think you mentioned it earlier in the pod, like the quality that came off the bench. You've got people like Bennett that didn't come on Saturday. There are a lot of options if he wants to go 4 at the back, 5 at the back. How do you think he'll approach Tuesday, and is that different to how you would approach Tuesday?
I would be surprised if Bennett doesn't start. I think probably one change that we'll see is it'll probably be Purrington that drops out. I think maybe Brophy switches to left and Bennett comes in on the right. I wouldn't change loads. I think you're right. Like, you know, the turnaround is very short. There were obvious changes that were required at Crawley following Harrogate. It'd been weird not to change it for that. But I think for this, it's a very different situation. I think you're probably at a point in the season, and because of the depth that we're quite fortunate to have, really, you're probably at a point where you're almost managing on fitness a little bit. Like more than anything, it's probably a bit like who's most ready.
Did Don Ball limp off? Am I misremembering that from Saturday? Did he take a knock and then come off? I could be wrong. But that might be to play into what you're saying there about sort of managing the minutes and so forth. Maybe Don Ball might drop.
Yeah, I mean, you can file this under good problems to have, I guess. But we're
you can say good analysis. Like, I was speculating whether what happened less than 24 hours ago. Oh, I can't remember.
But I think like it is like it's a good problem to have, because like both from Crawley and from Saturday, I think you'd really struggle to justify taking anyone out of the team. To be honest, that isn't actually injured or just not fit enough. But like I think because the basically the options we've got available to us, like we'll probably make a couple of changes. I mean, it'd be strange, like given I think Pelly's involvement throughout the season, it'd be odd of him to not start 2 games consecutively, particularly if there's maybe a question mark over Don Ball's fitness, if he did limp off indeed. And even then, like you're leaving like Corey Smith, you're leaving Lavery on the bench. Not even talked about Nevitt, like all these options. But I'm just not sure we'll change too much unless there's like actual knocks that have come through Saturday. And if there are, then the good thing is there's people who can plug in and play basically.
What about you, Swindle? Similar thoughts. Any changes that you might sort of roll the dice with if you could?
I think, like Tom says, Bennett might be the one. But as you referenced earlier, I think like Harris has quite a kind of habit of just kind of rinse and repeat, especially when it's Saturday to Tuesday, and quite likes going with the same lineup. And if everyone out there is fit, then yeah, maybe might go with that. But also, I think it's a good point. I think Don Ball, whether he limped off or not, Pelly being there, kind of ready and raring, I think might come in. So yeah, I think Pelly and Bennett would be the two that might come in, but don't try and change too much. I do want to give a little bit of a kind of honourable mention. I think it's worth keeping Appere in there. I think Appere does a job. I think he was kind of solid, if not unremarkable. Bit of a weird nearly goal, in the second half there as well. And I think on Saturday, and I think he's worth having in there. He puts a shift in. It's not glamorous, it's not pretty, but when you've got players like Ben Knight around you, sometimes that's just kind of what you need. And then options from the bench, and let's not fix what's not broke. So yeah, that would be my kind of idea going into the game.
I had Colchester down as one of the form teams in our division, but they've lost 3 in the last 5. So that's not right. But I feel like it's not that long ago that they were sort of winning quite a few and we're getting close to the playoff picture. Despite that, Tom, I do get the impression they will probably be one of the tougher opponents we've had at the Abbey for a couple of weeks, for a couple of games. Are you not concerned necessarily, but are you expecting a different game on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I think it'll look a bit different. we've obviously not had the benefit to listen to our guest from Colchester just yet. So you might have just heard him totally contradict what I'm about to say. Whereas it kind of feels
He's
like
wrong. He's wrong, Tom. You're right.
yeah, oh, big time. Yeah, if there's one thing I know about in this world, it's Colchester United and the structure of their team.
Up the U's.
I, yeah, yes, absolutely, and up the CUFC as well, I guess. I kind of have the impression that Colchester are quite fun, a lot of interesting, tricky players, your Lisbys, etc. I remember that Tavido being a bit of a handful as well at their place, but they're to be got at basically, and might fall royally flat on its backside this prediction, but I kind of feel like that's the sort of team that we thrive against, really, like a Crawley, for example, because we're typically so resolute defensively that we do quite well to nullify those sort of teams to less than they normally expect. But we have enough about us to get at these sort of teams. So, yeah, I think it'll look a bit different. I do think they pose threats, definitely. It's another really big test. It's another big test. I mean, this was one that we had earmarked when we looked ahead to this run of games. What would it have been? Probably post Walsall, I think it was. Maybe just on the turn of the new year. I think we'd earmarked Oldham away as being a real tricky test. Passed that one with flying colours, and I think this one was the other one that we picked out as being potentially the real tough games. Did not see Harrogate being the one that made us slip up, but
all comes back to Harrogate, doesn't it?
But there we go. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But yeah, I think look, it's one to look forward to. You asked me earlier in the pod, Jordan, about if I'm looking at other teams' results. I said no, not really. I looked at the other teams' fixtures for Tuesday night. You can probably bank on at least 3 of those 4 teams around us winning. Probably, maybe all of them. So the nature of the league is you have to go again. You have to press rewind and do it all over again.
Well, just on that idea, actually, obviously Tuesday night is another home game. I'm just thinking about what we were talking about at the top of the pod, and finishing in the top 3 and so on. It feels to me, Tom, that the home form and the home games until the end of the season is what's going to define our fate. I can't remember the exact order, but MK Dons, Salford, Swindon, Notts County all come to the Abbey, Colchester and Barrow as well. What's your thinking around that line, that actually it's what we do at home that is probably gonna hopefully get us over the line?
Yeah, it's absolutely right. I think it's an absolutely fair point. I suppose you can look at it this way: if we win all our home games but lose all our away games, we stand a good chance of being promoted. Whereas if we lose all our home games and win all our away games, we'll probably fall a little bit short because of the teams we have to play. So that's one way of looking at it, I guess. I think it's just I always think like it's such a good opportunity. Like I remember in the I think it was during the Great Escape year, where it's like obviously it's not ideal, like the situation that you're in, and obviously the fixtures that we've got are tough, but because you're playing teams in and around you, like your destiny is firmly in our own hands. And the thing that I keep looking forward to as well, and almost like games like Tuesday night, games like Saturday, they do make you forget we've still got some brilliant players to come back as well, like Mayer, Kouassi.
Hey.
And I think that was why
I sent you a reminder of that on Saturday, Tom.
Yeah, well, there we go. So not that easy to forget. Jordan never forgets. It's always good to know. I think that that's another of the things that we said when we were talking about the run of fixtures that we're currently in, and we were looking ahead even a little bit further to the run of games that's coming up next, which is arguably a bit tougher, is that the season's kind of opened up for us quite nicely in this respect. That you have like this run of games now where if you can take advantage of it, you put yourself in the position. And then when you're back at full strength, and you've got Kouassi, you've got Mayer to call upon. Like Mayer's probably one of the best players in the league, and we've not barely even mentioned his name, but he should be back for this run of games. It gives you a real opportunity to basically finish the job on your own terms, on your own patch, and that's what I think we should be looking to do. So yeah, obviously they're going to be real challenging games, and you almost want to be in a position, which I think we probably got ourselves into a little bit already, which is they become must not lose games more than anything. We might not need to win all of them. We might need to win 1 or 2 of them. But if we're not getting beat much, then we should be fine.
Swindle, how do you see Tuesday night panning out, mate? What kind of game are you expecting, and what score are you going to predict?
Yeah, a little bit of a tough one. Colchester are a slightly odd side. You know, they blow very hot and cold. I think the run that you were talking about was they won 3 on the bounce at the start of January, and then kind of, a little bit indifferent since then. I think they're a tricky old team to come up against, and they'll probably try and grind it out. I think actually not too dissimilar to how Bristol Rovers would have wanted the game to go on Saturday. I think they delivered it pretty badly. We've seen Steve Evans with a classic kind of Steve Evans kind of controversial statement at the end, digging out his players. But I think they'll come and try and grind it. I think it'll be a tough one. I think it might be tougher than Saturday's game, but I think United will kind of persevere. I think we'll go 1-0 up, get pegged back to 1-1 again, and a 70th minute winner, 2-1. Ben Knight again, probably overhead kick from halfway line or something like that.
Tom, 3 points on Tuesday. What are you thinking?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah, I think because I've got like well over 20 years now, I've largely disappointed in football. I've still got it in the back of my head that it has to fall flat on its face at some point, but it just doesn't seem to come. Yeah, I think like most games we'll play, really, we should have too much. I think, like, we just should. So yeah, hopeful, not necessarily expectant, but definitely think we've got enough about us to win again on Tuesday. And if we do, we'll put ourselves in a brilliant spot.
Tom, you and I are on the Friday pod. I've got a sneaky feeling we might be talking about a draw on Tuesday night. Not as confident in the win, but hopefully I am wrong. Before we go, just a quick word to say that 2 Colchester fans are doing a 2-day walk from Colchester Stadium. To start.
You're not on a train, Jord.
I know, right? Starting on the Monday and arriving just in time for kickoff, just in time to see their team get beat, hopefully. They are raising money for the Mind mental health charity, which is a great charity. We are going to put we're going to put the link to their fundraising page in our pod description. So if you're feeling generous and you want to back a good charity, please do head that way. If you want to donate to the CUFC Foundation, then send money towards Swindle and Tom, who are running the Cambridge Half soon. Don't suppose any of you know the URL for that donation page. If not, we'll put it in the description. And reminder that we will be in the Old Spring once those guys finish the half marathon. And a big thank you to the Old Spring, as always, for being our sponsor this season. Chaps, another pod, another victory discussed. Swindle, thank you very much, mate.
Thanks very much for having me.
Tom, you bored of all this winning yet?
No, not yet. I'm not quite there yet. Give it another few weeks, maybe so. But yeah, we're there. We got there in the end. They said it couldn't be done, but here we are.
Good stuff. Thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you on Friday.